Something unprecedented just happened in Ottawa, and what you are about to hear reveals how one of America's most vital relationships is collapsing in real time. The United States ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, walked up to a Canadian trade official at a formal diplomatic event and unleashed an explosive tirade that left witnesses stunned. This was not some private disagreement or a heated negotiation behind closed doors. This happened at the National Gallery of Canada in front of dozens of guests at a high-level business council event. Even Ontario Premier Doug Ford, a conservative who has been a longtime friend to American interests, was so shocked that he publicly demanded an apology. The behavior was described as absolutely unacceptable and unbecoming of an ambassador representing the greatest nation on earth. But here is the real kicker, because Hoekstra never apologized and instead he doubled down on his outburst. He made it clear that this aggressive stance is exactly how the current administration plans to deal with our northern neighbor moving forward. This diplomatic explosion was triggered by a simple advertisement aired by Ontario featuring the words of Ronald Reagan. The ad used Reagan's actual speech from 1987, where he championed free trade and warned that tariffs hurt American workers and consumers. Apparently, reminding the world of basic economic principles once held by a conservative icon is now considered a hostile act. The response from the administration was to call the ad fake and threaten to jack up Canada's tariff rate from 35% to a staggering 45%. Think about the gravity of a sitting president threatening a massive economic escalation because a Canadian province accurately quoted a former American president. This is not just about one man's temper or a single advertisement, because it represents the worst diplomatic crisis between the United States and Canada in modern history. The economic damage is already devastating both countries, and the gallery confrontation on October 28 was the spark that changed everything. The event started as a routine networking session for American and Canadian business leaders to discuss trade opportunities. These are the kinds of events that happen dozens of times a year to keep our cross-border economy moving. But when Ambassador Hoekstra spotted Ontario's Trade Representative David Paterson in the crowd, something snapped. Multiple witnesses described the ambassador launching into an aggressive and expletive-filled rant about Ontario's anti-tariff advertising campaign. He was not just expressing a policy disagreement but was berating a foreign official using language that shocked diplomats accustomed to professional discourse. David Paterson's response was remarkably restrained, as he later told reporters he simply hoped the ambassador was feeling better. But Doug Ford did not hold back and told the press that Pete needed to pick up the phone and apologize immediately. This public rebuke is significant because Ford is not some anti-American politician looking to score cheap points for his base. He is a conservative leader who has worked tirelessly to strengthen the ties between American businesses and Canadian resources. For him to go public with such harsh criticism means the incident was truly beyond the pale and damaged our standing. 2 days later, at another event, the ambassador made it clear that his confrontation was deliberate and represented official policy. He told the audience that you cannot come into America and run government-funded political ads without expecting consequences. This was not damage control or a mistake, but a declaration of a new and confrontational era in North American diplomacy. Former diplomats are calling this move unprecedented because they have never seen an American representative adopt such a hostile stance with a host country. If you want to stay informed on how these massive shifts affect your wallet and our nation's future, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below with your thoughts on this new diplomatic strategy. The numbers do not lie, and they show a picture of economic destruction on both sides of the border while politicians argue over protocol. Real American families are losing their jobs and watching their hard-earned savings evaporate because of this trade war. According to the Peterson Institute for International Economics, these tariffs cost the typical American household between $1,200 and $1,700 annually. That is not an abstract number or a theoretical calculation, but money taken directly out of family budgets for groceries and gas. This hits lower-income households the hardest because they spend a much higher percentage of their income on basic goods affected by these costs. Let us look at a concrete example of what these tariffs actually mean for the American heartland. Howard Miller is a furniture and clockmaking company that operated for nearly a century in the state of Michigan. They survived the Great Depression and 2 world wars, as well as multiple recessions and every economic challenge of the past century. But in July 2025, the company announced it was closing its doors permanently and laying off nearly 200 people. The company imported specialized components that are simply unavailable in the United States, and the tariffs made those parts prohibitively expensive. When the costs skyrocketed, the company could not adjust fast enough, and a century of American manufacturing excellence was wiped out. Workers like Nelson Vandermeer, who spent over 30 years at the company, told reporters that losing his job felt like a tormenting betrayal. He still had 10 more years before he was ready to retire, but now his future is uncertain because of a trade policy that backfired. This is the human cost of using tariffs as a blunt instrument without considering the intricate supply chains that power our modern economy. We are seeing these stories play out in manufacturing hubs across the country where the promise of protection has turned into a pink slip. The tourism industry is also getting hammered even harder than manufacturing, as Canadian visits to the United States have plummeted. In September 2025 alone, car travel from Canada dropped by 35%, while air travel fell by 27% compared to the previous year. We are talking about sustained and dramatic drops month after month that are draining billions from our local economies. The projected loss to the American tourism industry for the year is nearly $29 billion. Hotel workers in border cities like Buffalo and Seattle are watching their hours get cut because the customers have simply stopped coming. These are servers and housekeepers and small business owners who are watching their livelihoods disappear because of tensions they did not create. Our farmers are also facing a catastrophe, as Michigan's Agriculture Department reported that wheat exports to Canada fell by 89%. Fresh cherries dropped by over 60%, and apple exports declined by nearly 60% in a single year. These are farmers in rural counties who have always supported strong American leadership but are now watching their export markets vanish. The Canadian economy is shrinking, and when they buy fewer American goods, we suffer the consequences right alongside them. Perhaps the most stunning part of this story is the hypocrisy of the man at the center of the storm. Pete Hoekstra has not always been a zealous defender of tariffs, and in fact, he used to be one of their most articulate critics. During his 9 terms as a Republican congressman from Michigan, he co-founded the Tea Party caucus and championed limited government. Back in 2003, he testified before the House Ways and Means Committee and argued that the market should dictate prices. He warned at the time that tariffs drive up costs for manufacturers and lead to lost jobs that will never come back. Now in 2025, he is the lead enforcer of the very policies he once warned would permanently destroy the American middle class. It seems the economic reality has not changed, but the political winds certainly have, and loyalty has replaced common sense. This transformation perfectly encapsulates how political posturing has taken priority over the actual economic well-being of the American people. We need to ask ourselves if this aggressive approach is truly making us stronger, or if it is just a show for the cameras. If you believe we need to return to sound economic principles, join the conversation in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives. Hoekstra's history as a diplomat has also been plagued by controversy that raises serious questions about his fitness for this role. During his time in the Netherlands, he made false claims about no-go zones that were thoroughly debunked by local authorities. He was forced to apologize then, but it seems he has not learned the value of diplomatic restraint or factual accuracy. The administration values his loyalty above his expertise, and that is why he was sent to Canada to deliver a message of confrontation. He is not there to negotiate or to find common ground, but to systematically dismantle a relationship that took generations to build. The legal foundation for these tariffs is far shakier than the administration wants to admit to the American public. This is why the Supreme Court spent several hours in November 2025 grilling the president's lawyers about the legality of these actions. The administration is attempting to use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to bypass the standard constitutional role of Congress. They are claiming that fentanyl trafficking from Canada constitutes a national emergency that justifies a total upheaval of our trade laws. However, The data from our own border agencies shows that the overwhelming majority of fentanyl enters through our southern border. To use the drug crisis as a convenient excuse to attack our northern neighbor is a transparent attempt to bypass the law. If the Supreme Court allows this to stand, it will represent an unprecedented expansion of executive authority in our history. A president could essentially declare an emergency over any issue to void any treaty or law they find inconvenient. This creates a level of economic uncertainty that makes it impossible for American businesses to plan for the next quarter. We are risking the very stability of our constitutional order for a short-term win in a trade dispute. The irony of this entire legal battle is that the agreement being bypassed is the one this administration negotiated itself. The Canada-United States-Mexico agreement was hailed as the greatest trade deal ever made just a few years ago. Now the same officials who took credit for it are arguing that it needs to be circumvented by emergency powers. This sends a confusing and dangerous message to every other nation that considers signing a deal with Washington. If we cannot even stand by the agreements we wrote ourselves, our word on the international stage becomes entirely worthless. If you want to stay updated on this high-stakes battle for the future of American trade, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell right now. We need to hold our leaders accountable for the long-term consequences of these sudden shifts in policy. Every American citizen deserves to know how these legal maneuvers will impact their jobs and their cost of living. The Supreme Court's decision will determine whether we remain a nation of laws or a nation governed by executive whim. Join the conversation in the comments and let us know if you think the president should have this kind of power. While our courts are debating the technicalities of trade law, Canada is undergoing a massive political transformation of its own. Mark Carney, the former head of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, has taken the reins of power. He won the Liberal Party leadership with a staggering 85% of the vote and replaced Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister. Carney did not win by promising to mend fences with Washington or by offering concessions to our administration. Instead, he won by promising to reduce Canadian dependence on the United States and stand up to what he calls American bullying. This represents a fundamental and perhaps permanent shift in the strategic landscape of North America for decades to come. Prime Minister Carney has explicitly stated that the old relationship with the United States is officially over and won't return. He is framing our country as an unreliable ally that can no longer be trusted to honor its commitments. This is not just campaign rhetoric intended to fire up a political base during an election cycle. Carney is moving quickly to diversify Canada's trade relationships with European and Asian markets to bypass American influence. We are watching our closest friend and largest trading partner actively looking for ways to cut us out of their future. In a major address in November 2025, Carney described the current situation as a rupture rather than a temporary rough patch. He told his audience that nostalgia is not a strategy and that Canada must forge a new path alone. This means American companies will lose their preferred status in a market that has been our backbone for a century. We are essentially forcing our neighbor into the arms of our global competitors through our own aggressive posturing. The cultural impact of this diplomatic crisis is just as devastating as the economic numbers we are seeing. Anti-American sentiment in Canada has reached levels that we have not seen in several generations of our shared history. Grassroots boycott movements are spreading across Canadian provinces and stores are literally emptying their shelves of American products. We are even hearing reports of hockey fans booing during the American national anthem at professional games in major cities. These cultural shifts are dangerous because they indicate a deep level of resentment that will not easily be repaired. The trust that took generations of Americans and Canadians to build is being shattered in less than a single calendar year. We are alienating the people who share our values and our continent over a dispute about some television advertisements. This is exactly what happens when professional diplomacy is replaced by personal grievances and public insults at gallery events. We must ask ourselves if this confrontational approach is truly making America stronger or just more isolated. If you believe we need to protect our alliances as much as our borders, subscribe now and share this video with a friend. Small business owners on both sides of the border are the ones truly caught in the crossfire of this rhetoric. A survey from August 2025 showed that over 60% of small businesses are reporting significantly higher expenses. More than half of these owners have seen their hard-earned profits evaporate as they struggle to manage the new costs. These are the companies that provide the jobs and the stability in our small towns across the American Midwest. When they stop investing in new equipment or hiring new workers, the entire local economy begins to slow down. The furniture company Millenol, where Ambassador Hoekstra once served as an executive, has already reported a major decrease in margins. They have been forced to pass these tariff costs onto the American consumer through surcharges and price hikes. This means you are paying more for your office equipment so that a politician can look tough on television. We are essentially taxing our own citizens and our own businesses to send a message that no one is receiving. It is a self-inflicted wound that is draining the lifeblood out of our domestic manufacturing sector every single day. Kentucky bourbon distillers have been hit particularly hard by the retaliatory tariffs imposed by the Canadian government in response. Exports of bottled bourbon to Canada have dropped by a staggering 60% in just 9 months of this year. These distilleries are often the primary employers in rural Kentucky counties where alternative jobs are very hard to find. We are sacrificing the livelihoods of skilled American craftsmen who have spent decades perfecting their trade for a failing policy. These are the very people the administration claimed it was going to protect with these aggressive trade maneuvers. Every one of our allies around the globe is watching this disaster unfold and drawing their own conclusions. They are seeing that an American trade agreement can be torn up at any moment based on a presidential tweet. The European Union and Japan are already discussing how to reduce their own dependence on the American market to avoid similar shocks. We are demonstrating to the world that American partnership now comes with a very large and unpredictable asterisk. This loss of credibility is a strategic catastrophe that will haunt our foreign policy for the next 50 years. If the United States can unilaterally void a deal with its closest neighbor, no one else will feel safe at the table. We are trading away our status as the leader of the free world for the sake of a trade war we are not winning. Our competitors in Beijing and Moscow are watching this fracturing of the Western alliance with a sense of triumph. We are doing their work for them by systematically dismantling the most successful economic partnership in human history. Join the community by subscribing today and leave a comment below to tell us how you think we should restore American credibility. There are 3 possible paths forward from this crisis, and none of them look particularly good for the American taxpayer. The first involves the Supreme Court striking down the tariffs and forcing a reset of our entire trade strategy with Canada. While this would stop the immediate economic bleeding, it would not restore the trust that has already been burned to the ground. The second scenario involves the administration escalating even further and raising tariffs to 45% as they have threatened. This would almost certainly trigger a full-blown North American recession and a permanent break with our northern neighbors. Looking ahead 6 to 12 months, the warnings from economists are becoming impossible to ignore for any serious observer of our markets. If this trade war continues at its current intensity, we are staring down the barrel of a major regional recession that no one wants. Inflation will remain stubbornly elevated as those massive tariff costs are passed directly to American families at the local checkout counter. The Federal Reserve will find itself trapped between fighting that rising inflation and trying to support a rapidly slowing domestic economy. We are watching economic nationalism destroy the very prosperity it claims to protect for our hard-working citizens in the heartland. Trade talks have been completely stalled since late 2025, and there are currently 0 signs of any meaningful resumption in the near future. Both the American and Canadian economies are slowing down as businesses continue to pull back on their planned investments and future hiring. This is the slow-motion car crash scenario where everyone can see the disaster unfolding but no one has the will to stop it. The relationship is deteriorating to a point where even a new administration will struggle to rebuild the broken trust between our nations. We are essentially burning our bridges with our best customers while the rest of the world builds new trade routes without us. Make sure to subscribe to this channel right now so you do not miss our upcoming coverage on this shifting global economic landscape. We need to build a community that understands the difference between being tough on trade and being self-destructive on the world stage. Your comments help us reach more people who care about the future of our great nation and its long-term economic health. Tell us in the comments if you think we should prioritize fixing the relationship with Canada to save American manufacturing jobs. We are committed to bringing you the hard facts that the mainstream media often overlooks in these complex and heated trade disputes. The third and most likely scenario we face is a prolonged stalemate that leaves our industries in a state of permanent and damaging uncertainty. Companies like Howard Miller and Millennial are just the tip of the iceberg in this rapidly changing and volatile economic landscape. When the rules of international trade can change based on a presidential whim, no CEO will feel comfortable expanding their American operations. We are essentially incentivizing our own businesses to look elsewhere for stability and growth opportunities in an increasingly competitive global market. This is not how you make America great, but rather how you turn our once thriving economy into an isolated island. We must remember that restoring open and fair trade is critical for jobs and growth and for keeping prices low for everyone. Central bankers in both countries are warning that current policies are driving us toward an entirely avoidable and painful economic crisis. We are witnessing the deliberate destruction of one of our most valuable and historic partnerships in the name of short-term political theater. An American ambassador should always be a bridge builder and not someone who burns those bridges in public displays of unnecessary temper. The long-term cost of these choices will be measured in lost opportunities for our children and our grandchildren for years to come. The relationship between the United States and Canada has weathered world wars and countless political disagreements over more than a century of history. Whether it can survive this current obsession with high tariffs and diplomatic malpractice remains to be seen by all of us today. The early evidence suggests we are witnessing something completely unprecedented in the long and storied history of North American relations. We are alienating our best customers and our most reliable military allies at a time when we truly need them the most. It is time for a return to common sense and a strategy that actually puts the long-term prosperity of America first. As we wrap up this deep dive into the crisis in Ottawa, we want to thank you for staying informed and engaged. Do not forget to subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments section below to help grow this channel and our community. We will continue to track every development in this trade war and bring you the deep analysis you won't find anywhere else. Our national strength depends on a clear understanding of our economic interests and our global diplomatic responsibilities to our allies. Thank you for watching, and let us keep working together toward a stronger and more stable America for the next generation. The question now is not whether this will end badly for our workers, but how long it will take to eventually recover. We have demonstrated to every ally that American agreements are no longer worth the paper they are printed on in this era. If a president can decide he does not like a deal anymore, then no treaty with the United States is truly safe. This loss of credibility is a strategic catastrophe that will haunt our foreign policy for the next 50 years or more. We must demand better from our leaders if we want to maintain our position as the leader of the free and prosperous world. The evidence is overwhelmingly clear that we are destroying our own prosperity in the name of a protectionism that does not work. We are alienating our friends while claiming to strengthen America, and the world is watching our every move with growing concern. Every business that closes and every farmer who loses a market is a testament to the failure of this aggressive trade policy. We can do better than this, and we must do better if we want to see our nation thrive in the future. Stay tuned for more updates as we continue to follow this historic and evolving story of American diplomacy and economic power.